it's my pleasure to introduce to you, we've got Anita Bhadwaj and her youth ambassador with her, who is Vilma. Anita is a leader of a project in schools run by Southall BlackSisters, and that was part of Common Law. So I'd like to welcome her.
From there, if you like.
Is that
Speak to
okay?
your way of comfortable.
So good morning, thank you. It's actually, I know that in many ways it's like the room isn't full, but I just wanted to acknowledge that for those of you who are here, it's actually really hopeful for me in terms of doing this work to see that there are a lot of teachers who are committed to really progressing this issue. So my name's Anita Bhadwaj and this is Vilma. We work for an organisation named Southall BlackSisters. Southall BlackSisters is an organisation that has been around for over 30 years doing this work. It's a bit louder, sorry. We've been doing this work for 30 years. We're an organisation based in West London, and we work specifically to support black women and black minority ethnic women and girls experiencing violence and abuse. In 2010, we were funded by Comic Relief to take part in a project that looked to research the effectiveness of something called the whole schools approach. Now, Comic Relief for years has been given a lot of, has had a lot of applications from organisations like myself who wanted to go in and do education work in schools and prevention work around violence against women and girls. And so what they did was actually invite a number of specialist organisations, or what they call grassroots experts, to come in and say, look, we want to see how effective is this work in actually changing attitudes and therefore affecting behaviour around violence against women and girls, and primarily sexism, and how young people are in terms of their interaction with one another, and therefore to affect future change. So the project, the overall aim of our project and what Southall BlackSisters was asked to do was to be the specialist expert around black and minority ethnic women and girls. There was a number of other organisations that were working more generically around violence and abuse, and we were the specialist organisation looking at actually the intersectionality of race and gender, and how does that interplay in terms of sexism and racism in the way that young black and minority ethnic women and girls experience violence and abuse, and how that starts in the interplay in the classroom. I'm sure I don't need to tell you about the whole schools approach and the definition of the whole schools approach, but we went in terms of the 2-year project. We worked in 2 schools in Southall, and Southall was chosen specifically in terms of the demograph of a high BME populace. So we were looking at some very, very key issues, and those issues being around forced marriage, honour-based violence, and FGM. And I'll come back to some of those issues and the interplay of them. But we worked at a policy and institutional level. So the idea was that we were going into schools and talking to senior level, board of governors, looking at policies. And actually this was one of the key, I would say, challenges and difficulties. And what we found in our baseline data was that although a lot of schools have the equal opportunities policy, they have very good safeguarding policies and practices. At a very different level, what they didn't have was looking at the gender inequality. So you have an equal opportunities policy, but actually what you have in policy and what you have in practice in the playground, there was a huge marked difference. We worked with teachers and ancillary support staff through training, and actually working with teachers to develop lesson plans and look at the curriculum and look at where gender inequality could be, and raising awareness around violence and abuse, where it could be embedded throughout the curriculum. So it wasn't just in the PSHE lessons, it was actually looking at if it could have been embedded in English, in history, and other aspects of the curriculum. And then through the direct support with students. And that was through the actual workshops. What we did was we trained teachers, we developed a curriculum, and then for the first 2 years we worked alongside trainers, alongside teachers delivering that programme, and actually alongside our ambassadors and our ambassador programme. And I'm gonna let Vilma talk about that a little bit more. But we then went in and left that curriculum, so that actually, although we left after 2 years, the curriculum and the skill set and knowledge was still present within those schools. I'm actually wondering if I talk to you a little bit more about some of the issues that were covered in those lesson plans. So we took a very broad approach to the issue, and as an organisation we're very clear that when we're talking and working around violence and abuse against black and minority ethnic women, it's really important to start from the starting point of gender stereotypes and gender inequality, and that is the breeding ground, and that is the ground that allows violence against women and girls to take place. And therefore the lesson plans had that journey, so the journey each student took was going back to gender, going back to gender stereotypes, going back to gender inequality, and very much a personal experiential journey, and then connecting it wider in terms of, okay, so how many of the FTSE 100 chief executives are women, and really making that connection on a personal and a wider macro level as well. We did a lot of work around sexual consent, self-esteem, honour-based violence, forced marriage, healthy relationships, and also looked at things like music and misogyny. So there was also a way of connecting in at a very kind of young people level in terms of how they could see it, and were they connecting the dots in terms of the videos they were watching. So it kind of was any which way that we could go in. That's what we did. Okay, thank you. And sexual bullying. So in terms of our baseline data, one of the things just at a teacher level that was really clear when we did focus groups, and I kind of won't go into all the way that the data was collated, but some of the things that teachers were coming back to us and saying was that, we actually feel that we have a real lack of confidence in our own level of knowledge and understanding of violence against women and girls, and specifically about handling BME specific issues, and that was very much around challenging some of the cultural issues and the cultural manifestations of violence and abuse, and for fear of being seen racist, particularly if the teacher wasn't coming from that same culture, and I'll come back to that. I'm actually going to hand over to Vilma, because I think it's really important for you to hear of one of our interventions. So there was the workshops, we did assemblies, we did whole school events, and we worked through things like the International Day to End Violence Against Women and Girls. We worked through the International Women's Day. And one of the programmes was our peer-led programme. So we recruited young women like Vilma and young men. I'm going to hand over to her to talk about it a bit more.
So the Southall BlackSisters Ambassadors Programme was a programme set up to raise awareness about the issues of violence against women and girls. And coming from an area that consists of many different backgrounds and a community where this does occur, it's really important to bring these matters forward. And it's an issue that affects people not just locally, but nationally and internationally. And because it's such a serious and direct topic, teenagers often find it really difficult or even uncomfortable to bring up, whether that's with their peers, family, or even friends sometimes. So this results in the topic becoming really unknown, or young people having a really small perception of it. So we need to create a space or an environment where they're able to talk about this and how they feel. And one of the common forms of abuse that teenagers come across is domestic abuse in their relationships. However, they don't even realize sometimes that they're victims of it. And one of the reasons we discussed in the Ambassadors Programme was gender stereotypes, which links in with sexism and how it can cause a power imbalance in relationships. It's extremely important to highlight these issues in schools so that young people know what to do and what their different options are. And SBS aims to look at methods of prevention, and this Ambassadors Programme was a perfect example of it. And also attending the Girl Summit gave me an opportunity to look at how issues are handled on a larger scale. And the day looked at empowerment and how it's important to motivate not only women but also men to take action. And during the day there were loads of commitments to change from the governments and the civil societies. Just to end, I would like to say that the programme really helped me and my other peers become really confident in talking about these issues in front of whether it's just people who come to us or like a large audience.
ambassador programme was because I'm a prevention worker, so I often go into schools and we run a lot of education programmes through, actually I'm going to do a bit of a plug if that's okay, is that there's a consortium of organisations through London councils and headed by Tender and Southall BlackSisters is one of them. And what we do is we offer, I think there's like 5 schools per borough that can get a free programme around raising awareness. And so we go into schools and do 2-day projects or actually 10-week projects with young people. And if you're interested, do come and speak to me. But one of the things that we did in terms of the ambassador programme was the ambassador programme, we trained our young students to then work alongside teachers to deliver on the lessons, to deliver on the curriculum. And the reason why we found that successful was that what happened was to have somebody in the room at a peer-to-peer level is very different from it coming from that kind of adult to young person, and to also see that actually you as a peers and young people challenging this is a very different kudos. So I definitely think in terms of our research it was a very effective strategy. I'm going to hand over to Vilma.